As many of you know, I'm a big fan of induction annealers. However, they can be cost prohibitive for a lot of shooters. I'm going to show you a cost-effective gas system from Dureco, and it is going to do everything you need to get your brass in shape and sized better than ever. Let's take a look. And this is it. This is the Dureco Ugly Annealer. I really don't know why they call it an ugly annealer. I think it's actually pretty sexy for what it is. This thing is only $279. It is a bargain for what it offers. I have done reviews on other brass annealers that use gas. There are a lot of them out there, but I will say this thing has hit the market, and it's been around for a little while, but it really kind of shook things up because of the pricing. The company itself is out of Australia. It is manufactured in China. Take that for what it is, but I will tell you it is very well made, and they really put a lot of care and thought into how it operates, especially for a sub $300 price point. I do have a link to it down in the description. You can check it out. It does have hundreds of reviews, and I will say I think it's like 4.7 stars on the review side. So it is very well loved and very well liked in terms of how it can operate and what it does. So let's take a look at some of the basic assembly that will be necessary, because it does come with a few of the pieces detached. The first thing is to determine whether you want to use the actual flame holder, or I should say the propane nozzle holder, or whether you want to use the generic holder. The generic holder is simply going to go over your thin bottle and let it stand there. It does give quite a bit of versatility, and I will say I actually liked it a little bit better than this nozzle here. When this one is being held, you do get a really solid point of aim on it, but the adjustability, you don't have any angle on it, so you can't determine exactly how you want to hit, let's say, the shoulder or the neck. So it does take a little bit more tweaking. The advantage being you can lock it down and it is permanently in the same place every time you anneal, as opposed to utilizing this, which is going to, you're going to have to kind of position it each time you go to use it. There's going to be pros and cons to both, but I do like that they give you, the opportunity to figure out what you want. If you're going to use some sort of a propane bottle, which is necessary, you are going to have to buy a head for it like this. It does not come with one. I will say this one worked really well when I had this holder for it. I would probably get a longer one if I was going to be using their holder, simply because it would give me more versatility in terms of the distance towards the brass. This one is pretty short, and it did not give me a lot of adjustability in that sense. So again, one of the reasons probably why using this holder worked for me. The other thing I've seen people do is, instead of this sheet metal, which is a little bit flimsy, you can go to the auto parts store and you can buy an exhaust pipe holder, which is just a metal, like it almost looks like a U-bolt, and then a plate that will hold it in place. It is a little sturdier that way. I've done that in the past with other gas annealers that I've used. But no matter what, there is definitely some flexibility in there for how you would like to put your propane on there. I've also used like the larger camping bottles of propane. So, you get a lot of different ways that you can apply the propane. You do not want to use anything other than propane. Assembly-wise, we've got that in. Obviously, you can see that you need to put it in before you put the bottom plate on. The bottom plate is going to utilize the screws that are already on the bottom. You're going to remove those screws, put the plate under there, and then screw it back on. I will tell you, I didn't read the instructions, and I did not put on this propane holder the first time. And of course, I looked at it and said, yep, I forgot that. So I'd had to take the plate off. So just a word to the wise, if you're going to use the built-in holder, I would definitely recommend doing that before you put the plate on. Otherwise, you're gonna have to remove it. There are also some additional parts, such as the plexiglass holder here. Now, this not only lets you see how many pieces of brass you have in here, it also is going to move in and out so that you can accommodate different lengths of brass in here. And if you look, you'll see that you can move this in or out. and that is going to give you, basically most modern cartridges in length. In reading some of the reviews and in talking to the company about what sizes it'll hold, there are some like really esoteric cartridges that you might struggle with a little bit. You also have to make sure you put on your little ramp here. That is going to be how the brass is ejected out into some kind of a pan. And you also need to make sure that you adjust for each piece of brass this little holder, and that is done with this thumb screw right here. And that is going to move this bar in and out, and you're going to want the brass to be comfortably held. So you don't want it to be so close to the wheel that the brass could pop off. You don't want it so far that it might fall under. There is a happy medium. I would say about 3/4 of the diameter of the brass is kind of what you want for a distance, and that's going to let it roll pretty nicely in there. And that is also your ejection mechanism that's going to pop up. I'll show you in a second here. It does come with 2 different wheels. This is the narrow wheel. It has a wide wheel, again, supporting just about any cartridge it's designed for. It also has a small parts kit. This is also going to have the control knob for the timer, not the timer, but the rotation on it. And that is going to also be right here. So this is going to show you the speed. This is your rheostat here that is going to control it. And I like that it has a simple digital display, because you might be doing different types of brass. You can simply note, okay, my 223 likes this setting, my 308 likes this setting, and then you can just dial it right to 17 or 25 or 36 or whatever it happens to be. Different propane tanks, torch heads, all that kind of stuff are going to heat at different rates. So I can't just tell you, well, 308 is going to always be at this setting, because it just doesn't work that way. Your flame annealing is going to largely work on either a Templax system, which is a painted on kind of an enamel that you put on, and then when it hits a certain temperature, it's going to change color, so you've reached that temperature. That is a really good guarantee, and you get it based on a particular temperature that you want, whether it's 500 or 550 or 600 degrees. Or you can just use the mouth is glowing warm as a rough idea. That is how the manufacturer actually does it on their video, and with pretty good success, I've done the same thing. So let's jump into the actual usage. I'm going to just load in a few pieces of brass here. You can see it's pretty easy, and again, it would hold quite a few, upwards of 50 or more of my magnums here, and that is all it is. I leave about a 1/4 inch or so between the end of the mouth and the plexi, just so that it can move properly, especially when there's a stack of them in here. We're going to go ahead and turn this on, and I have it turned down to 0 right now, which is why nothing's moving. We're going to get our torch going. Okay, so I'm just going to put this holder on here, and we are going to light it up. Now that I have my propane tank where I want it, you can see I have this sped up, but you can see that it's rotating. It's going to pick up a piece of brass. It won't let any of this other brass come down. It is then dropping one down here where the torch is hitting it right at the shoulder, and it's heating it up. And again, under normal conditions, it would be cranking at a time rate that would allow for the neck to get just a little bit glowy red. But you can see how simple this is. I do have it water quenching here. And this is, again, why I really like this just simple stand, is it just gives me a little extra control. If I really want to get it in on the shoulder or point it at the neck, I can rotate this around and get it going exactly where it needs to be. And just like that, you can see we already burned through all of those. But it's a simple process, and I have to say, again, for under 300 bucks, it does a lot of stuff. Now, part of the reason why we anneal is to get the malleability, the life use out of the brass. And you're probably saying, well, does it really matter? Well, let me show you over on my reloading bench some of the brass that I've annealed with this in my reloading setup, and you're going to see exactly what the advantage is here. And of course, now that we have annealed these, we are going to size them to show really what the annealing process is helping with, which is the consistency in your shoulder bump. Of course, it's going to lead to brass life extension as well. But I've got these all with my one shot on them. I'm using my Cortina die in my Rock Chucker Supreme here, and then I am using the Duraco competition shell holders. These are a really nice like 404 stainless heat treated competition set, and they come so you get like a 0 and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And as with a lot of competition shell holders, that is so you don't have to change your adjustment on the die. You can simply change this out to get another 2000s, and so on. I just happened to get lucky. I've got my 0 in here, and I just had this set, and it worked out good. So let's go ahead, and I've already got it roughly set. And this is not about having an exact number. It's just about showing consistency. So let's go ahead and measure this. And this is 3.5 thousandths on shoulder bump. Three and a half thousandths shoulder bump. Three and a half thousandths shoulder bump. I sound like a broken record here. 3,000. And 3,000. So they're all within a 0.5 thousand. Again, that 0.5 thousand on the calipers is really a negligible number. So if we just go with the 3, which is really what should be done, they are all extremely consistent in their bump. And that is, again, the big advantage of annealing. Because of the consistency, you're going to get the malleability there in the shoulder, and it's just going to allow it to come together a little better in terms of how it sizes and the consistency. And you saw how consistent that brass was being sized. Again, it's easier, it's softer, it's going to take the shape of your sizing die a lot better. And really, that's what this is all about. You're bringing that brass back to life each time you anneal. It's not letting it work harden, from bending and bending, like think of a paper clip where you bend it a couple times and it'll snap in half. Well, that's what's happening to your brass if you don't anneal. And really, I do think that one of the big reasons people don't anneal is they're either scared of it, or they just don't think they can afford an induction system, and they think that an induction annealer is the only thing that does it right, and that's just not true. I love my induction annealers. They make my life very simple and easy, but there is nothing wrong with a good flame annealer like this. And I think when you look at the cost savings of under $300, plus the cost of a propane tank and this and that, so let's say around $300 by the time you get the nozzle and a tank, compared to $1,500 to $2,000 for an induction system, there's definitely a cost savings to be had. You do have to kind of fidget with it a little bit more. You have to get the brass and kind of trial and error a little bit. Did it get too hot? Did it not get hot enough? But once you figure it out, once you kind of get that timing right with the wheel here, once you get the flame in the right position, I think you will find that it does a very good, consistent job for the money. I would have no reservations about doing it myself. It's just a different way to get the job done. So with that, if you have been holding off getting an annealer because you didn't want to spend the money on an induction system, or you thought it's just too complicated to do with a propane system, hopefully the Ugly Annealer is going to show you that's just not true. Anyway, links are in the description below. As always, I hope you get out and shoot, and remember, there is precision through process. Have a great day.